Hello, welcome to Soulprint Intuitive Tarot. Today is Thursday, February 24th, and for my regular viewers, you know that I very rarely release anything sort of on Thursday. But of course, situations are warranting a couple of sort of emergency type readings. So before I get started, I just want to say thank you. Thank you to my viewers and my subscribers and the amazing comments. The support means a great deal. I especially am grateful and appreciative that the comments that go on are so kind and so supportive of each other and of, kind of globally what we're dealing with. And so thank you for that, because you know what, there's enough negative stuff. And I'm so grateful that my channel doesn't appear to be being impacted by it. So I thank you very, very much for that. Okay, so we're going to take a look at Russia. Now, again, this is not an area that I have delved into. I don't like the Russian energy, and I don't like their leaders' energy. But this is important. So they're going after Ukraine. Okay, well, all right. So first of all, one of the things that Ukraine doesn't have, or sorry, that Russia doesn't have, that Ukraine does have, is that waterfront. Okay, so that's important. They need to be closer to be able to ship product. So there's that. Energetically, when I try to step into the energy, I have to say it's a really sort of uncomfortable energy. I'll say it that way. Because you know what? This is the thing. If you live in Russia or Ukraine or Austria or Poland or those surrounding countries, you have almost guaranteed friends and families in all the other countries. And so for the Russian people, this is heartbreaking for them. It truly, truly is heartbreaking because their government is attacking their friends and families in other places. And so the energy is a difficult one for me to sort of go into. So what I want to do is I'm going to break this reading down into two readings. And just so that you're aware, so I'm going to do this one. It's going to get released right away. I'm recording this at like 12-ish Mountain Standard Time. So this is going to go out within an hour or so. But there will be one tomorrow. And tomorrow I'm going to be looking at the whole Alvin Bragg thing and what the heck is going on there, and the prosecutors that quit clearly, or certainly looks like, in opposition to the direction that investigation, the criminal investigation, is not going forward in. And so I'll take a look at that tomorrow. Okay, so first I want to look at Ukraine, and then I want to look at Russia. And I am sure in both of those cases, or I may end up, I'm sure the information is going to come through with regards to NATO and other countries and their responses. And if not, then we'll do a third set of cards. So let's start with Russia. How are the people in Russia? Sorry, maybe I'll just start with Russia because I keep saying it when I want to say Ukraine. Okay, tell me about Russia. Tell me about Putin. Tell me about the people of Russia, how they are doing. What's going on there? What's his strategy? What is he hoping to accomplish? Is this ultimately going to bring him down? I believe it was CTV News, but I could have that wrong. Just before I started this, recorded that Chernobyl had been taken by Russia. So back in the 80s, the late 80s, there was a big explosion. Chernobyl is a nuclear power plant on Ukrainian soil. And apparently recently, it was never able, they never put it back sort of online or into production again, or whatever they do with those things. It actually had become a tourist destination. So I'm not quite sure why they wanted to take it. Apparently, it was considered an exclusive area or reserved or a restricted area. So they should not have gone on there. But you know what? They also should not have attacked Ukraine. So obviously, this isn't something he's particularly interested or worried about. Doing what should be done. There we go. Let's take a look at Russia. Come on down. I have a question. Okay. Putin, Russia, attack. Putin, Russia, attack. Putin, Russia, attack. Okay. So let's start with the sanctions. So there were sanctions put in place. And then this morning, after the attack, I'm speaking this morning in my time here in Canada. They unloaded a whole bunch more sanctions. Canada did, Russia did, and they're going after Russian sort of held interest in sort of individual countries. So if I'm not mistaken, they're going after sort of people and banks and real estate and that kind of thing. And that's where the sanctions are hitting right now. These are not the end. These are the beginning. This is the, what do they call that? The shot across the bow? It's kind of like that. They have, and by they, I mean Europe, Canada, the United States, NATO. They have a lot of other sort of, it's like they have a list, like a timeline. That's what I'm being shown. So, and it's like they have it plotted out, almost like kind of like a spreadsheet. And so what you have is sort of, okay, when Russia does this, this is how we're going to respond. When Russia does this, this is how we're going to respond. And they are kind of like, so if you take the piece of paper, right, they're here, but it goes all the way over. Okay, they're almost like at the beginning of it. And so while right now people might be thinking, well, you know what, they're just not doing enough. Right? I mean, why aren't they specifically going after Putin or why this or why that? It is because there is sort of like a systematic attack strategy. So there's that. This is the thing that we have to understand about old Vlad, okay? He wants to be the Tsar of Russia, okay? I just don't know another way to say it. He has a sense that somehow he has been denied his true birthright, his calling, his destiny. And he very, very much wants to take, you know, that part of the world and take it back to the USSR days. Okay. Well, that's sort of, he's not going to be able to get that. All right. That's not going to happen. But what you are going to see, I'm sorry, is like a lot of bullying. You're going to see an escalation in this war. Ultimately, that kind of huge victory that he's looking for is going to be denied to him. He is not going to be able to accomplish what he is hoping to. And part of the reason is that it is the very people, the citizens who are going to, I want to say pushback, but you know what? It doesn't feel like a pushback as much as it feels almost like like energy work. And I know that sounds kind of a little crazy and ambiguous, but that's literally what it feels like. When you have no choice and you can't find a way clear in the current circumstances or situation, then you turn to energy, you turn to higher vibration. And it really does feel like, in some ways, particularly the Russian people, they for a very long time have wanted a democracy. This is not how they want to live. And it feels as if there is going to be sort of like an energetic swell of resistance to good old Vlad. Now, listen, think back to a year and a bit ago when there was a energetic resistance to the former guy. That energy work paid off. And so this is not sort of a all hope is lost situation. Now, from his perspective, he is just very interested in bringing all of those countries back under one Russian umbrella because he wants to be czar. That's it. That's his motivation. He is no longer sort of mentally um, stable, but I don't mean that kind of the way we said, well, who wasn't stable. This is more like he is so obsessed with what he wants that there really is a sense of almost recklessness. Okay. He's not acting like strategically. It feels more like he is acting emotionally. His responses in some way are sort of a little bit childlike, right? It's like a temper tantrum. I want this and I'm going to get this. And I don't care what I have to do to get it. I'm just going to get it. It's sort of that sort of an energy. He really does have sort of these delusions of grandeur. So what I'm saying is, listen, people are going to die. There's going to be bloodshed. Apparently, I really should pay more attention when I read this stuff, but I think just the taking over of Chernobyl, there was like something like 40 Ukrainian soldiers lost. But part of what is going to prevent him and Russia as a country from sort of achieving what they are trying to achieve is the fact that in many, many ways, he's not behaving strategically. Okay, he's just not. This is like about like temper tantrums. He also, for some crazy reason, seems to doubt the strength of NATO. So again, countries are not sending in troops to fight on on Ukraine's land, okay? But there are countries around Ukraine and around Russia that are democracies and could very well be attacked. And that's where the energies are going in. When that happens, NATO kicks in. So for right now, it feels very much as if he has an inflated sense of how strong he is and what he can do. And because of that, he has sort of a faulty sense of what the pushback is going to be, and it is going to be significant. All right. Remember, the sanctions are kind of the beginning. I'm sure in 100 years, when we look back at this, we're going to be able to see sort of the step-by-step chronology of these wannabe dictators taking over democracies. And he is kind of another in a long line, but he has a real ruthlessness to him that that kind of I don't know, puts him sort of in a stronger power, a stronger field position, he thinks. But the will of the world is not going to stand by. Because, listen, I've been saying this a lot, and I'm just going to keep on repeating it until we all sort of really retain this in our head. The more the dinosaurs fight back, the harder they push back. And whether that is old mentalities like Russia, whether that is, the Republicans, the harder they push back against what they see as sort of this tidal wave of liberalism, okay? The more threatened they are. If they weren't threatened, they wouldn't be pushing so hard, but they feel threatened. And the more threatened they are, yes, that makes them more dangerous, cornered animal, but it also makes them a little bit more reckless. And when you're reckless, you make mistakes. So for all of us out there who are going, oh my God, like the world is falling apart, and um, the liberals are, or the Republicans are getting away with this, and countries are doing this. Just take a breath and realize the harder the pushback, the more threatened they feel. The more threatened they are, the more mistakes they're going to make. I'm just saying. Okay. So what it looks like now in terms of Russia is that, first of all, you have a very strong grassroots resistance from the people, and they are working energetically to push back against truly what they see is a monster. Okay. You're going to see more of this sort of, I mean, Donald Trump's out there spewing crap about how, he thinks what Putin's doing is brilliant because he's being strong and tough or whatever the heck. You got Fox News kind of, saying, well, I really don't know what the fuss is about. Why doesn't Ukraine just, bow down and kiss Russia's butt? Energetically, that is not going to work. But, listen, it feels as if there are components of the United States that are beholden to Russia. And so don't be surprised if you have people saying really incredibly stupid things. And you're looking at them and it's like, well, how on earth can you be American if you think that way? Well, because that's what happens when people hold purse strings over you. I have long said that I don't see blackmail in terms of we have stuff on you that we can release. That's bad. It is more about sort of money. I gave you this. I expected this. Why didn't you deliver this? It's like that. Okay. So that's where Russia is. He's going to try really, really hard, but it just is not going to, there's like a sense of childness about him. But I cannot minimize this. I can't say, listen, don't worry, this is going to blow over. It's not. This is going to take some time. There's going to be loss of life. There's going to be pain. But ultimately, it very much feels like it is going to be a higher power, whether that is the citizens of Russia, whether that is the people of Ukraine, whether that is the world globally, whether that is NATO. But Putin is not going to escape this, okay? This is going to be his downfall. Whether it happens this year or next year or the year after, this was sort of a slippery slope. He honestly should not have gone down. There is not a road for victory for him, but there's also, he still has power enough to make a heck of a mess on his way there. Okay. I'm going to be very careful what I say here. I have said, and I've said this for a while quietly, that I have a feeling that Putin's days may be numbered a little bit. Now, I'm not sure exactly what that looks like or how such an event might take place. But, there's certain people who are very beholden to him. There's a lot of oligarchs out there who are rich simply because he made them rich. And it's possible that loyalty or no loyalty, um, you know, um, they could start retaliating a little bit as their bank accounts get frozen, as their real estate gets frozen, as they start feeling the pain. So I don't know. I wouldn't. I just have a feeling that, and I don't see this happening really soon. Okay, this is not a tomorrow thing or a next month thing. But if he continues to push and push in a direction that just vibrationally is in opposition to what the world wants globally, you can see where he really is putting himself in jeopardy. Okay, let's take a look at Ukraine. Now, Zelensky kind of feels a little bit, as I step into his energy, that he maybe, I don't want to say he bit off more than he could chew, but I think that there is an aspect of him that is sort of more conciliatory, a little bit more, well, let's just play nice, let's not anger the roaring beast kind of thing. Let's take a look. Zelensky, Ukraine war. Zelensky, Ukraine war. Zelensky, Ukraine war. Okay. All right. So right now he is kind of in that place where there's still information coming in. Emotionally, there is sort of a sense of I almost want to say a little bit like a lack of clarity. So this is what it feels like. It feels like people, this is what they're showing me. Okay, they're showing me people are running into his office or wherever he is, and they're putting pieces of paper in front of him. And he's like trying to absorb everything on every piece of paper. And what he ends up with is sort of like this feeling of being overwhelmed, emotionally kind of feeling like he's lost his footing a little bit. There is that sense that um, it's a little bit sort of like a poodle going after a fox or a wolf. Um, there's sort of that feeling that this is it feels more like David and Goliath, okay? But the reality is this: he has a lot of support coming his way. He has an abundance, in fact, of support, whether that is coming from countries individually under the umbrella of NATO. Um, and I have to tell you that Article 5, I'm almost sure it's going to get invoked, okay? It's not going to be because of Ukraine. It's going to be one of the bordering democratic countries. I'm sorry about that. But, this is the thing. We're all in it together as a global family. We're all on this rock hurling through space together, whether we like it or we don't. So, from Zelensky's perspective, he has a great deal. He's been given a lot of reassurance. There is going to be a lot of support coming his way. And he is working very, very hard at trying to put the pieces together in an order that makes sense. He is going to wear the weight of this war and the loss of life till his last breath. And it doesn't matter, really, if Russia doesn't win. He is carrying the weight of this every day going forward. He has a little bit more strength than people give him credit for. It kind of reminds me of somebody who is quiet, perhaps even appears passive, is, just sort of content to kind of go along. And then they kind of get really angry and they explode. Okay, so he's stronger than people are giving him credit for. The Ukrainian people are stronger than people are giving them credit for. And ultimately, the promise of the Ukraine will stand and be realized. Okay, but it's not an easy journey to get there. And right now, there's a lot of worry, a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety, because this feels so very, very unstable for us. And for the most part, a lot of the people who would have experienced World War II are no longer on the planet. They have moved off into the light. So, and I know that there have been other significant wars since then, but a world war is different than a Vietnam. Okay. And so what you have is you have people who typically almost really don't pay a lot of attention to what's going on in Afghanistan or Iran or Iraq. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of like circling around the edges of consciousness. But what you have now is a situation where everybody is paying attention, because it feels very much like everybody is sort of under threat. And in fact, that's not wrong, because this Russian wannabe czar is talking about, nuclear options. Now, will he actually do it? I don't think so, because I think he has, even sort of um, as sort of wild as his thoughts are, there is a recognition that if he blows up the world, he really doesn't have a whole lot left to play with. And he does know, he is aware um, that there will be, like, if it goes down that path, it's just going to get hideous and ugly for everybody, but he will not be allowed to just do this stuff without response. Democracies are looking at this as a serious and genuine threat, because there really is a feeling that if he gets away with what he's trying to do in Ukraine, other countries are not safe. They're simply not safe. And once he, kind of gets a stronghold in Europe, how hard is it to cross into Canada, frankly, from the high north? And then how hard is it to move into the United States? How hard is it to, move into Asia? Okay. So there's just more attention being paid to this. This feels very much like a world event. And while that creates a lot of sort of emotional responses, it also, though, talks about a unity and a strength that comes from people kind of standing up and saying, you know what, no, like, enough is enough. We're not going to, and you're not going to. So while it feels like in the long term, Ukraine is going to be able to survive this, it definitely feels like it is a rocky road, and it is going to go on for a little while. I'm not hearing like years and years, but definitely anybody who thinks that this is going to be over, by April or May, they would be um, kind of indulging in some fanciful thinking. It's really important to just remember that he's a bully, and his behavior is becoming more erratic. Sorry, I'm talking about, the wannabe guy in Russia there. And because Zelensky has the strength of, in many cases, the vast majority of the world standing behind him. There will be a victory there, but it's going to be a hard fought one. I'm sorry, it just is. All right. I want to take a quick look sort of at NATO as a whole. Okay. And despite the fact that I appear to know a great deal more about, honestly, U.S. politics than I have any reason to think I ever would have wanted to know, I don't know a lot about NATO. I don't know. I can't even tell you honestly what countries are and are not connected to NATO. Like, I couldn't list them for you. But energetically, they are a force. And so I want to take a look at NATO and just see kind of how they are reacting and responding to what is going on, kind of what may be in their, back pocket or up their sleeve. So, focusing on NATO for a second here. There's definitely a strength there. NATO collectively is very grateful that who did not win a second term, because the dynamics would have been very, very, very different. And the United States would have been in a position where they would almost be fighting on the wrong side of things. And that would take everything to a very different and strange place. So one more reason to be very grateful that 2020, that 2020 election turned out the way it did. All right, come on down. Let's take a look at NATO. NATO plans and prep. NATO's plans and preparation. NATO's plans and preparation. They see him clearly. Make no mistake. It's a kind of an interesting thing, because in some ways, that expression, give somebody an F rope. It kind of feels a little bit like that. Like, it almost feels as if there's like a wait and see strategy to really see where the chinks in Russia's armor are and how they can be used against him. So that's sort of an interesting something that I wasn't sort of expecting to tap into. There are going to be resources and assets that are going to be made available under the umbrella of NATO. When it comes right down to it, it's about money. It's about assets. It's about greed. It is about what the pretend czar wants to have. He wants to be the richest, the most powerful, the most. And it's weird because he doesn't want to be revered. He wants people to be scared of him. But because that's his motivation, then that is his biggest vulnerability. And there seems to be a very clear understanding between the members of NATO that they understand that. And that is part of the reason that you see this sort of big push with the sanctions. Because no, it doesn't, it's not like all these sanctions got put in place and then, the guy went, oh no, I'm doing terrible things, I need to back out. Here, Crimea, go back to, Ukraine. It's not that. But it's, if you continually hit somebody who was completely motivated by power and greed and money, and you keep hitting them in those areas, you gain strength and you weaken them. So while for a lot of people, it's going to feel like NATO isn't doing enough and they're not doing it fast enough, Just understand that they do actually have some clarity about what this looks like and how they're going to, and the strategy they have going forward. I'll say it that way. So there's definitely a feeling that it is, how can I say this? On the one hand, NATO was reacting aggressively. They are very aware of the threat, okay? But the other part of it is they are not overreacting. They are not being extreme in their reactions at this point. And that is by design. Ultimately, democracies hold, and ultimately, globally, we move into a higher, stronger vibration and energy. One way or another, we move towards enlightenment. We move closer and closer towards that understanding that there is no off-ramp from Earth, okay? There's nowhere to go. And so we all have to figure out how to play nice in the playground. But NATO definitely feels like they are going to come through. There is going to be enough given and enough given to move this thing towards a more positive ending, and the assets are going to be there. On the other hand, Russia is going to take a very, very large financial hit. There's some very rich and influential people who are not going to be happy. They are going to literally feel their wealth being completely frozen, and they're not going to be able to access it. And in many ways, this is going to be what causes the fall. But he doesn't see it yet. Because like his buddy Dawn, he has delusions of running around with a crown on his head. And he's not going to get that crown. Okay. So NATO is going to move forward at I almost want to say a strategic and organized pace, but they're not dawdling. Okay, it's like a march as opposed to a stroll. But for those people who are terrified for friends and family, it's a nightmare. And there's just no way around that. It is painful and devastating and very, very hard. So, prayers for democracy, prayers for Ukraine and the people of Ukraine. And honestly, by extension, prayers for the citizens of Russia who really have been fighting a war of their own for a really, really long time. But that fight at some point will end in their victory. And at some point, they will become a democracy. It might not be tomorrow, but it's coming. Okay, so as I said, thank you for being here today. I hope this has brought some clarity or some insight, some comfort, some something. Thank you for being here. Tomorrow morning, I will release the video looking at what the heck is going on with the criminal investigation into the Trump companies out of Manhattan. No, I'll figure out where that's from. I don't know. Is it Manhattan or is it New York? I don't know. All right. Good enough. Until tomorrow, take care. Be well. Bye-bye.